Hello, my name is Tony. Released the same year as The Flight of the Phoenix and Sands of the Kalahari, beginning to detect a bit of a theme here. The Naked Prey is the most visceral and primal survival movie of the three. Even today, it still packs a fair old gut-churning wallop. But first, Cornel Wilde. That's a name you don't hear often these days, and I suspect if you do hear it in the genteel embrace of polite company, the response will be along the lines of, "Who the fuck is that?" Well, he was a Hungarian-born Hollywood beefcake pusher who was quite popular in the late 1940s through the 50s, running into the early 60s. He never quite achieved the same star status as contemporaries like Rock Hudson and Tony Curtis, and never generated the same household name mass appeal. He was, however, a different kettle of matinee idol. Initially, he was under studio contract, but in the 50s went freelance, a daring move back then, formed his own production company, Theodora, with his wife, and pursued an interest in writing, producing, and starring in his own movies. Kirk Douglas and others travelled much the same route. Douglas peaked in his venture with Spartacus. Wilde did the same with The Naked Prey, his best film. So if you didn't know who Cornel Wilde was, check out his classic 50s noir, The Big Combo, his grueling 1967 war flick, Beach Red, his 1970 post-apocalyptic scripting and directing gig, No Blade of Grass, and most importantly, The Naked Prey. He's something of a minor discovery for the uninformed. It's colonial-era Southern Africa, and a safari is launched from a fort. The funding fucker, sorry father of the trip, known only in the cast list as Second Man, Gert Vandenberg, is an ivory trader out to bag elephants for their tusks. The guide for the venture, monikered in the cast list simply as Man, Cornel Wilde, leads the way. When they encounter a party of indigenous tribesmen, their leader requests a customary tribute or gift. It's a traditional thing. Man strongly advises his boss that paying up is the expedient thing to do to avoid any unnecessary complications down the pipe. But the arrogant fuckwit will have none of this presumptuous, impotent extortion stuff. He insults the leader of the tribesmen and barges him out of the way. Yeah, way to win hearts and minds there, dickhead. After wiping out half the elephants in Africa, the group make camp and kick back, which is when the tribesmen attack with spears and arrows and butcher everyone apart from one or two bearers and the white men they had taken captive and hauled off to the tribal village. One is dressed up like a wild turkey by the women and made to run a gauntlet, finally getting stabbed by multiple tribespeople with multiple spears. Another is slathered in clay, placed on a wooden spit, and roasted like a rotisserie chicken. Farewell, my old China. And Second Man is trussed up and forced to confront a venomous cobra, which bites him in the eye. That'll no doubt see him off, all for the sake of parting with a few coins or trinkets. It was the principle of the thing, you say? That's the trouble with misplaced principles. No good at all when you've got an angry snake in the chops, or indeed something of a similar nature. But what of Man, the main man? Well, he's given something of a chance. He's stripped stark naked. Then one of a party of hunters from the tribe fires an arrow in the air which plunges into the ground in the distance. Man is made to run. When he passes the fallen arrow, the first of the hunters gives chase with his spear at the ready, and this boy has moccasins on his feet and is fucking fast. One by one, when a warrior passes the arrow, the next sets off running. Man is going to be hunted through the jungle until he is caught and killed. So begins the pursuit and the narrative direction for the rest of the film. Man isn't just going to give up and let himself be killed though. Early on he strikes lucky. The first hunter gets within range and throws his spear, but he misses. Running out of steam, Man picks it up, turns and impales the hunter with it. He strips the dead warrior of clothing, footwear, oversized knife and water sack. He's tooled up now. The next pursuer overexerts himself and drops dead of exhaustion and heart failure, coughing blood. The third one, Man ambushes from the rear and spears in the spine. He can't afford to hang around though, got to keep moving because there are plenty more headed his way. 8 on his tail. The chase is on. Cornel Wilde is not the best director you'll ever encounter, and certainly not the best actor. I mean, really not the best actor. What fights his corner for him is his willingness to confront subjects in a very direct and uncompromising way. For the time, The Naked Prey was groundbreaking in taking the traditional jungle adventure tropes of your average Tarzan film and eliminating all the comfortable fantasy heroics and cute cuddly wildlife chums in favour of something very stark and primal instead. It's a progressive approach that some might find a little too subversive and alienating. The film doesn't pull any punches in its condemnation of both the slave and ivory trade. This stall is laid out early doors. Such practices are presented unequivocally, as they were indeed vile and reprehensible stains on the moral and ethical souls of humanity. The extermination of herds of elephants for financial gain and the sheer sick fun some derive from it hits home in realistic scenes of slaughter. When the main man challenges his employer's wanton massacre of non-ivory bearing animals, he pompously retorts with something about being entitled to his sport. Although our main man is no Boy Scout and hardly blameless by way of his willing participation for money, there's a sense that he's had enough of this shit. When his employer announces he thinks he'll go into the slave trade next, as casually as he might inform, "I think I'll wear my yellow socks tomorrow," main man backs away from any idea of a partnership. This is his last safari, after which he is retiring to his farm. He looks jaded, as though the creeping realization has finally caught up with him that this maybe isn't the best way to make a buck. It's no excuse, but it's a positive when someone starts to wise up, to reflect on the evil shit they're involved in and make plans to disengage. There's no doubt that Second Man is a repugnant piece of human garbage whose supremacist attitude stinks. His refusal to provide the tribe with a token sum as a symbol of cursory respect is followed by a tirade that questions what right the natives have to be there anyway. The answer is in the word native. It's their fucking country you're trampling through, you ignorant dolt. The irony is that he and those like him are the ones who are intruding where they don't belong, doing things they shouldn't be doing. You really look forward to this repulsive scumbag getting schooled in the error of his ways. He wouldn't pay the nominal tribute, but he will pay in the end. Unfortunately, so will everyone else in the general ballpark. Although he's our protagonist, man is still no less part of the problem. If we're willing him to prevail and escape, it's because here he's the underdog, outnumbered and outgunned in hostile territory. And we do so like an underdog because they're much like us ordinary folk, and we can relate. Sometimes he doesn't do himself any favours. When he sets a brush fire to put a lethal barrier between him and his pursuers, he joyfully leaps up and down, shouting such apocalyptic wish-fulfillment missives as "Burn, you devils!" Later, though, he comes across a native village and witnesses it being attacked by slavers. He, like us, is appalled at the horrifying assault as they burn it to the ground, murder those they don't want, and take captive those they do. Encountering a little girl hiding on the perimeter in a redemptive moment, man leads the slavers away from her, killing some of them, but ending up tumbling down a waterfall into a river. The little girl rescues him from drowning and becomes his travelling companion for part of his journey, before turning back to return to her home territory. It's a gentle and touching interlude as they walk along swapping songs. The girl sings a tribal chant whilst man opts for Little Brown Jug. It just about swerves being mawkish and twee, managing to hit the right note of subtle poignancy. Wilde throws himself into a physically punishing role, burning up under the relentless sun, running to exhaustion, eating raw snake to stave off starvation. The physical combat and death scenes are brutal, vicious, thrillingly savage, excluded from peak realism by the presence and colour pop of some liberal use of well-faked Kensington gore. Filmed on location, there is a terrific aura of authenticity to it, supported by a soundtrack of tribal drumming and chants. The verbal interactions between the leader of the hunters, Ken Gampu, and his crew are kept to native dialects. No pidgin English dialogue or subtitles, yet we can mostly glean effectively the gist of what is being communicated. Kill Whitey, mostly. However, detracting from what, for the most part, is a stripped-back and largely unique survival pursuit thriller is the overuse of wildlife inserts sourced from stock documentary footage. Most concern indigenous predators stalking and attacking their prey. After a while, you're thinking, yes, okay, we get the metaphors, hunter or hunted, kill or be killed, fight or flight. Can it with the National Geographic shit, could ya? How many lions taking down a wildebeest or leopards chomping on a zebra ass do we actually need to see? Then there's the sneaking suspicion that man in a real-world situation wouldn't have lasted very long. The hunting party are a fit, young, skilled, powerfully athletic stalk and kill unit in an environment they know well. They move faster than stink off a shovel. Man would have been buzzard meat in minutes. Don't let any of that put you off though, nor the perceptible racist overtones which are far less pronounced and stereotypical than in most other films of the decade. At least Wilde goes out of his way to establish some balance. What you get is a raw, propulsive, thrilling survival chase nightmare scenario that beats Bonnie and Clyde and the Wild Bunch to the punch in advancing the graphic depiction of physical screen violence. It would have been detrimental to the film's box office potential, I imagine, if Man didn't survive in the end. But at least it finishes with a mutual, respectful acknowledgement between him and the leader of the Hunters. Whereas, if it had been me, I'd have probably just given him the finger. Nah, just kidding. Probably. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. Well, that concludes my survival trilogy. Coincidentally, The Flight of the Phoenix, Sands of the Kalahari, and The Naked Prey were all released in 1965, a run of films that shared certain themes that made it appropriate, well to me, to cover all three. Although these reviews have been uploaded individually, there will be a triple bill edit soonish, with some added bits and pieces. Not exactly a remix, more a reformat. I shall rise from the ashes of a burned out jungle or plane wreck soon. Until then, keep running for your lives, pilgrims.